All right, everyone, welcome back to the Land of Chem. I'm your host and the author. My name is Jeffrey Drum. Thank you all so much for joining me again. All right, everyone, welcome back. Today, I will be discussing the archaeological data supporting my hypothesis regarding the mechanisms of operation that were involved in the chemical manufacturing sequence that once occurred inside the second pyramid on the Giza plateau. This is episode 139, hydrochloric acid and the central pyramid. If this is the type of content you're interested in regarding the ancient technology of a lost civilization utilizing physics and chemistry and the function of the Egyptian pyramids and other ancient structures from across the world, this is the channel for you. So please subscribe to the Land of Chem here on YouTube, and don't forget to click that little notification bell so that you do not miss the new episodes that premiere twice per week. Please like, comment, share, and stay tuned. If you want to help support this channel and get access to exclusive research and unreleased footage that you will not see anywhere else, check out the Land of Chem members only channel and thelandofchem.com. If you want to pick up a copy of the book or grab some merch, links in the video description below. If you want to follow me on Instagram or on X, it's at the Land of Chem. Also, don't forget, after you finish watching this video, please go subscribe to our two new channels here on YouTube. Let's Go with Lex and G, formerly Egypt Eats, and Egyptian Trash Cats for all you cat lovers out there. Ladies and gentlemen, as always, thank you all so much for the support. I think that is it for today's intro. So without further ado, let's get right to it. And just a quick reminder, the second 2024 Land of Chem Ancient Alchemy and Ascension Tour is on, and a few bookings are still available. But the deadline for reservations is coming up soon at the end of August, and the time to make moves on this is now. So if you are interested in coming to Egypt to see the pyramids for yourself, including special permission access to Abu Sir and a private entry into all three chambers of the Great Pyramid of Giza at night during this epic adventure experience coming up in early winter later this year, please send me an email to contact@thelandofchem.com with the subject line Egypt Tour 3, and I will send you the full tour itinerary and pricing details. Thank you all so much, and I will see you soon here in the Land of Chem. All right, everyone, here we go with tonight's episode. Now, to begin, today I will be discussing the operation of the central pyramid of Giza that you can see here, a structure that is completely ignored by alternative functional pyramid researchers whose focus addresses only the Great Pyramid as if all others were either non-existent or irrelevant. Well, as you know, my hypothesis about the Egyptian pyramids manufacturing chemicals on an industrial scale comprehensively explains the function of all of these structures under the umbrella of ancient chemical engineering, while simultaneously nailing the proverbial sarcophagus closed regarding the pharaonic burial narrative. So let's start with this piece. And the following research comes from Keith Hamilton in his Layman's Guide to the Pyramid of Khafre, unless otherwise noted, and I'll put a link to his work in the video description below. And he presents this quote regarding what was discovered inside the already opened supposed pharaonic burial sarcophagus inside of the primary chamber. And I'll quote here, "Having rummaged the rubbish inside of the sarcophagus, we found a piece of bone, which we supposed to belong to a human skeleton. On searching farther, we found several pieces, which, having been sent to London, proved to be the bones of a bull." End quote. And here we have evidence of intrusive internments within the structures, just like what was discovered with the Ptolemaic era burial inside the step pyramid, that completely contradict the proposal that these structures should be attributed to the pharaoh for whom they are named. So once again, not a burial of the pharaoh who they say it's for. So what was the original purpose for the central pyramid? Let's take a look at the major functional components that are presented in this diagram. First, the external water-filled reservoir. Next, a system of two inlet shafts on the northern face of the structure here. Then inside of the pyramid, we have the primary upper chamber and the secondary lower chamber that are connected via this internal shaft system. Now, let me read you this from Keith Hamilton regarding his opinion about the configuration of the central pyramid. And I'll quote here, "The design of Khafre's substructure appears illogical. We have two entrances, which lead to two chambers, and because they are connected, it took only one entrance to be discovered to render the security of the other as superfluous." A basic description of the substructure. Starting from the upper entrance, we find that the upper passage is constructed of granite masonry. This terminates at a single granite portcullis, and beyond this, we have the start of a long horizontal passage, partly cut through the bedrock and partly constructed of masonry. However, because we have a connecting passage from the lower chamber merging through the floor of the long horizontal passage, we have a large void in the floor of some 4.72 meters, which would need to be bridged if a funerary procession was to enter by the upper entrance. At this junction, no post holes are to be found in the walls to create such a bridge. We could argue that the procession could transit through the lower passage, but then why build the upper entrance, knowing that it would be made redundant? Indeed, why was it necessary to connect the two passages? Security would be better improved if the ascending passage from the lower chamber was omitted. The upper corridor would be intact, allowing a procession. Whilst, if only one entrance was discovered, at least one chamber would escape the attention of the robbers. The apparent illogical layout raises more questions than answers. End quote. Indeed, and I agree that this configuration would be completely irrational when viewed as a structure designed for a pharaonic burial. However, it all makes perfect sense when interpreted from the perspective of ancient chemical engineering. So in this diagram, we are looking at the internal components from the east, with the two inlet shafts here and here, a system of two valves, one here and one here. The upper primary chamber here, connected into the lower chamber through this horizontal and sloping shaft system. Now, let's compare this configuration to a simple laboratory apparatus that can be used to produce hydrogen chloride gas in a hydrochloric acid solution. And here we have a reaction flask containing sodium chloride into which sulfuric acid is introduced. The generated hydrogen chloride gas flows through the connecting tube and accumulates here in the collection vessel. And hydrogen chloride gas, being highly soluble in water, can easily be dissolved to produce a solution of hydrochloric acid. Now, let's apply these laboratory features to the internal components of the central pyramid, where we find a reaction chamber here, the connecting tube here, and the collection and extraction chamber here. An illogical design, as Hamilton stated, for a pharaonic burial, but the perfect configuration for an industrial scale apparatus used to produce a solution of hydrochloric acid. So now let's review the chemical equation with the reactants and products, with two pathways by which the reaction can proceed depending on the temperature. Here at the top, we have the low temperature reaction of sodium chloride and sulfuric acid to produce hydrogen chloride gas and sodium hydrogen sulfate, otherwise known as sodium bisulfate. And you should be noticing that here inside the central pyramid, we are utilizing the sulfuric acid product of the Great Pyramid as one of the initial reactants. All of these structures work in conjunction with each other in a sequence. And as I said at the beginning, that by focusing on only one pyramid, you miss out on the entire spectacular picture that is being painted in this masterpiece symphony of ancient alchemy. Next, here at the bottom, we have the high temperature reaction of 2 sodium chloride with sulfuric acid, yielding 2 hydrogen chloride gas and sodium bisulfate. And some of you that are familiar with chemistry should already be recognizing the significance of this secondary product. A very important topic that I'll be returning to soon. So now, how does this system work? Here we have the internal reaction chamber system that is enclosed by the external reservoir that once stood right outside of the lower inlet shaft. Now, here in this diagram, we have the 2 features superimposed on one another with the external reservoir here. And what you are about to see today is an extremely simplified Chemistry 101 explanation of the reaction sequence, as I will be revisiting all aspects and components of this structure in some upcoming episodes, focusing on the advanced chemistry of the central pyramid, as I believe this structure deserves as much attention as I've dedicated to explaining all the rest of them. So now, let's begin. The external reservoir is filled with water, and our 2 internal valves are closed. Inside the primary reaction chamber, we have the reaction between sodium chloride salt and sulfuric acid. The reactants generate hydrogen chloride gas that flows through the connecting shaft and down toward the lower collection and extraction chamber. The lower inlet valve is opened, allowing water to flow into the chamber, dissolving the hydrogen chloride gas into solution. And for anyone that's curious about the function of the internal valve systems, I recommend watching episode 39, the Bent Pyramid Satellite Hydraulic Press Mechanism. Next, the lower inlet valve is closed and the extraction one-way valve opens due to the pressure of the solution inside of the chamber. The upper reservoir inlet valve is then opened, creating a circulating flow of water, moving down from the upper shaft into the lower extraction chamber system. This flow of water draws the remaining hydrogen chloride gas out of the primary reaction chamber, dissolving it into solution as the hydrochloric acid product is extracted out of the system. The upper valve is then closed, and the remaining product drains out of the chamber until the one-way valve closes. Now, we still have the sodium sulphate byproduct remaining in the upper primary reaction chamber. So water is introduced through the inlet shaft to dissolve the sodium sulphate byproduct, which is then removed from the primary reaction chamber through the same shaft. Now, please keep in mind that this is a highly abbreviated explanation, and I have a lot more coming up soon, specifically focusing on each aspect of the reaction cycle. But now, let's take a look inside of the extraction chamber. As you can see here, and this area of the central pyramid is kept highly secured under lock and key, and photos from inside of this chamber are extremely rare. But I found a few, and I wanted to show you evidence of the extraction shaft. This first set of pictures comes from Hamilton's guide, the first one looking toward the east, now looking west at the back of the extraction chamber. And this rectangular patch at the back of the chamber here, now highlighted in red. But you can see it better in these old photos. This set coming from the Guardian's Giza website. Again, the first one looking west at the front of the chamber, and now looking east at the back of the chamber. And that rectangular patch is clearly visible right here. again highlighted now in red. This is the extraction shaft that was utilized to remove the hydrochloric acid product solution from the internal chamber system. And there are several critical details from the archaeological data that support this conclusion. Let me read this here from Hamilton's guide. In the above image looking east, we can see the author entering the lower chamber. The ceiling finish appears quite rough. Petrie would state, the lower chamber is also plastered and is cut very roughly in some parts. On the roof, even 6 inches too much having been taken off and then plastered up. This great deficiency is, however, the same on both sides of the roof, and it looks as if some different form had begun and then abandoned. In this view looking west, we can more clearly see a deeper cut in the ceiling. M&R would generally describe the workmanship of this chamber as rather coarse. Indeed, they mention that the pavement was very rough and leveled with mortar. When Belzoni first entered this chamber, he reported, this chamber contains many small blocks of stone, some not more than 2 feet in length. Unfortunately, no more detail is given on these blocks, and Perring would only comment that the apartment contained a quantity of square stones, though they may have been gone by Petrie's time, as he makes no mention of them. Belzoni would also report inscriptions found on the walls and ceiling, which he thought might be Coptic, though these appear to no longer be visible. Perring would comment, it is evident from stains upon the walls that the rain has penetrated in such quantities that it has been 12 inches deep in this chamber. M&R would further report that the ascending passage that leads to the upper horizontal passage was once scoured by running water. It is unlikely that this water came from the plugged lower entrance, but from an open upper entrance passage or robber's tunnel, or a combination of them both. Okay, first, the chamber itself is plastered. Second, the presence of unaccounted small blocks. And third, evidence of running water. Let's start with number 1, the plaster coating. As presented in episode 2, chemically resistant coating compounds and calcium sulphate. The plaster coating that once covered the internal reaction chambers of the central pyramid is insoluble in acids as stated here. Acids had no effect on plaster of Paris regardless of the concentration. Plaster of Paris is not soluble in acids. Various tests with hydrochloric acid and sulfuric acid attempting to dissolve the material almost without any success. So these chambers were coated with an acidic corrosion-resistant compound that protected the chambers from the vitriolic effects of the product solution. Next, detail number 2, the presence of small blocks inside the lower chamber. I propose that these unaccounted for small blocks may have come from an excavation of the area surrounding the extraction shaft, and were then just left inside of the chamber, the hole from which has now been covered up by this rectangular patch. And one of my main questions about the security surrounding this empty chamber is that if there is absolutely nothing inside of this chamber, just this bedrock cavity, then why is access inside of it completely prohibited? It makes no sense, unless there is actually something of great importance down there that once again contradicts the conventional pharaonic burial hypothesis, like the extraction shaft. And third, the evidence of flowing running water. The descriptions by Perring and M&R describe flow patterns circulating down from the upper inlet into the lower sloping passage, which is exactly what I have just proposed was occurring during the hydrogen chloride gas collection and extraction chambers of the manufacturing process. So here we have 3 critical pieces of archaeological evidence that support the conclusions presented in my hypothesis. But there is so much more to this structure that will be coming up soon, including the function of the red granite within the upper inlet shaft, the presence of iron oxide deposits within the core bedrock of the structure located here, the function of the niche located just outside of the lower extraction chamber here, and the full scope of operation within the primary reaction chamber, including the sulfuric acid inlet shaft, the red granite container system, and as stated here by Flinders Petrie, there is a good deal of crystallized salt on the inside of the coffer. Just one of the archaeological documentations of salt found within the primary reaction chamber. And whether that salt, chemically speaking, was sodium chloride or sodium sulphate, its presence inside of this chamber supports my proposal about the initial reactants that were employed within this ancient chemical engineering sequence. A whole lot more on this coming up soon, so please subscribe and stay tuned. All right, everyone, that is it for today's video. This was episode 139, Hydrochloric Acid and the Central Pyramid. I really hope you enjoyed today's video, and in this week's Sunday site visit, we return to investigate some new areas of interest on the Giza Plateau. This is an episode you do not want to miss, so if you haven't already, please subscribe to the Land of Chem here on YouTube if you're interested in the ancient technology of a lost civilization utilizing physics and chemistry and the function of the Egyptian pyramids and other ancient structures from across the world. Don't forget to click that little notification bell, like, comment, and stay tuned if you want to help support the channel. Check out the Land of Chem members only channel and thelandofchem.com. Links in the video description below. If you want to follow me on Instagram or on X, it's at the Land of Chem. Also, don't forget, after you finish watching this video, please go subscribe to our two new channels here on YouTube. Let's Go with Lex and G, formerly Egypt Eats, and Egyptian Trash Cats for all you cat lovers out there. Ladies and gentlemen, as always, thank you all so much for the support. I think that is it for today's episode, so I will see you next time. Yo, are you still watching this? Please subscribe to the Land of Chem here on YouTube and click that little notification button. New videos coming out every single week. And check out this other episode. Come on, do it. Do it now.